19 years ago, when Tony was 35, out jogging and had a brain aneurysm. Before, Tony was what did you do before?
I was a senior customs officer at Parcels Post.
And I worked in retail full time. And our son was 15.
15.
And we led a fairly busy life. Tony was very involved in my son's sport, or our son's sport, and he was also involved in sport himself. He played football.
And cricket.
The aneurysm could have been in his brain since birth. He had over a period of the 2 or 3 years beforehand, he'd had really, really bad headaches, not very often, maybe 2 in the year. So he'd been to the doctor once about that and had been given migraine tablets, but that obviously wasn't what it was. So when he was out jogging, what we know is that he fell over, which actually was only just around the corner from here, and there happened to be another jogger on the other side of the road who saw him. He actually stumbled and clutched a tree, and his mouth was frothing. And so an ambulance came, and then they had to get an intensive care. We found that out all after the fact. So he actually got picked up probably before I got home from work that night. But we didn't actually find him until 10:30 that night in North Shore Hospital. So he'd already been in there, and they'd already operated and had him all on the machines that go ping. And so we went down to the hospital, and he was in intensive care. Told us that he'd had a major head aneurysm, and if he survived, he was either going to be dead or a vegetable. So we went up and had last rites. And he was in intensive care for a couple of weeks. He went and had surgery again, and he was in hospital for about a month, and then he was at the rehabilitation centre for 6 months. We lived with his mum for 15 years until 3 years ago when she passed away, and we moved back to our own home. His mother was a nurse. She had retired, and so she was looking after him at home. I continued to work, and I probably worked for 3 years and gave up work and spent then the time at home with him. I think it's very difficult to say how your life changes, because it's a process that you just keep on going through, and it all becomes your life as you're going through it. So you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what would have happened if it didn't happen. I guess your life changes, but it doesn't change in a way that you can sort of glaringly say, oh my God, that's happened. You just continue doing what you need to do to get through what you need to get through, and that becomes the norm. It's sometimes hard when you haven't got a partner that actually is
equal.
Well, equal in the sense that you've got someone to bounce ideas off and have a conversation that, sometimes difficult, but sometimes in my head, emotionally, it can be like your head wants to explode. But physically, I don't find it that bad. But then again, I don't look into the long term. My girlfriend said, what have you thought about, long term, what you're going to do? Well, I don't look into the long term. She said, how are you going to lift him when you're 70? Well, I don't, whatever comes will come, because whatever's come has come. So
my life changed. I got pushed around, and I forgot what I was going to say now.
You say how your life's changed.
My life has changed in that I can't walk.
And what else?
And I can't think for myself. I can't remember things.
And why can't you walk?
It's an aneurysm.
But what did that do?
A bleed in the brain knocked out my memory.
Well, it knocked out your short-term memory.
Long-term I'm fine, but short-term I've got nothing.
Well, no, you don't have nothing.
No, very little.
That has actually improved over the years. He remembers a lot more things. Because it happened on a particular side of the brain, it knocked out his balance. An aneurysm is a stroke, but it's a bleed, not a clot. And so it knocked out his balance on one side. So he actually, I can walk him, but I have to be on a certain side. But that's only for very short distances. He's become very hunched over from being in the wheelchair. And also the more you sit in the chair and the more you're seated all the time, everything compacts and you become less. I guess we've been very lucky that we have a lot of family support. Tony's one of 7 and so am I. I haven't been that restricted in what I can do personally for myself, and I actually try to do... You've got to do something personally for yourself to get yourself out of, to be able to socialise with someone without, no offence, without you.
Take it.
We've been to a few restaurants with friends where we've had to cart him up spiral staircases or, You go places and you have to make do with the amount of people you have
Right.
to get him wherever we need to get him. Tony handled all the financial things, so I had to go and find where everything was and get access to everything that was, because he paid most of the bills. We just lived on my wage on a day-to-day basis. Oh, I also learned to drive because I didn't have my driver's licence, because Tony and I have been together since we met at school, and so I had to learn to drive. So I learned to drive at the age of, I think, 35, 36. The relationship is different, obviously, because I have to look after Tony and I have to...
Push me around.
He needs to be showered, taken to the toilet. He gets dressed in bed, so I throw him his clothes in the bed. I have threatened with a pillow over your head so no one knows.
That's only a threat.
I know.
You
Yeah,
wouldn't know,
that's only a threat. I'm just putting that out there just in case.
I know what you're doing.
Um,
Covering your backside.
If you asked how I changed, I probably have, and I probably have a lot. I'm a control freak, and I think I am, and I think that's because when something happens that takes all your control away, and you have no control over it, you become very focused on what you can control.
I haven't changed that much.
Haven't I?
You got better looking.
Oh, thanks.